If only I knew these things back when I started making beats. Man, it would save me so much time, it's crazy. What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to share some things that I wish I knew back when I started making beats, and hopefully it can bring you some value as well. So let's not waste more time, let's get straight to it. So the first thing I wish I knew when I started, referencing to other songs and sounds. I used to live in my own bubble making beats, not paying attention to anything in my surroundings, which is kind of cool to some extent. The bad part though is that my sound selection was horrible, but even worse, my mixes. So looking back, I wish I would pay more attention to what other producers were using in terms of sounds, because that's a great help to give you a better understanding of what type of sounds to use and what sounds go well together. But even more important, mixing as a beginner is like hiking without a map. I had no idea what I was doing. I just went with whatever sounded good in that particular moment, just to run into the situation later where I was never happy with my mixes anyways, because they always came out way more quiet than other people's tracks, or they just sounded dull, and that is because my levels were all over the place. So look at referencing to other songs as a compass. It doesn't have to sound identical, but it's just a great guideline, and it just helps you point you in the right direction. It just gives you a much better sense, for example, of how loud your kick should be hitting or what level your bass should be at. So using reference tracks is definitely something I wish I did more. Alright, the second thing I wish I knew, to humanize melodies and drums. So what I mean by that is, when I started out, I always quantized everything and I never touched the velocity levels. So let's listen to these chords real quick. They hit at the exact same time with the exact same amount of power, which makes it sound a bit robotic. But if we nudge some notes back a bit, and if we randomize the velocity a little, when we play this back now, it sounds more natural and more human-like, because nobody would ever play with an exact timing and the same amount of power in real life. That just wouldn't happen. This applies to drums as well. So listen to this loop right here. Cool, and if we move the hi-hats back a bit and let's mess around with the velocity again, when we play this back now, we just added a human feel to it and more bounce. Okay, the third thing I wish I knew, more sounds does not equal a more professional beat. I used to stack a bunch of instruments, filled every little gap with a sound, thinking that that was how professionals did it. Otherwise, my beat would just sound too simple or too amateurish. I had this image in my head that professionals probably had these big sessions every time they were producing something, which might be true if you're working on a film score, but if you're trying to make a beat, most of the times that's not necessary. So my beats always sounded too busy. The fact is that if you want artists to jump on your beats, you have to leave space for the vocals. So stacking all those instruments, making crazy transitions, adding way too many effects might impress another producer, but it might throw the artist off. Maybe the artist just wanted the hook part to repeat one more time so he or she could keep writing. So always make your beats with the vocals in mind. You can even try humming something over it yourself to get a better idea of how it will sound in the end. Also, if you have too much stuff going on, it will just make your life a lot harder when it's time to mix. So one thing I used to do, which is kind of a good exercise, was to challenge myself to make a beat with X amount of instruments. So I would put a limit of, let's say, 8 instruments in total, and the next beat I would do 6 instruments. That way I had to choose my instruments more wisely, and it kind of got me away more and more from the mindset of just adding stuff. And instead I started thinking that every instrument that I will add needs to have a purpose, which personally I think is a pretty good way to look at it. Alright, so the next thing, which is kind of related to the previous point, and that is not overuse compressors and effects. So apart from adding a lot of sounds, I used to throw a compressor on almost every instrument. I know that's crazy, but everyone was talking about side chaining, parallel compression. I thought people use it on everything. I will say that I didn't compress much on each individual instrument, but it all adds up in the end. And the same goes for other effects, especially reverb, which is also another effect that I overdid a lot, I will confess. And I know it's a pretty common thing that people do because it's not that apparent, and it's kind of hard in the beginning to tell what effect it actually has on the mix, but using too much reverb will definitely clutter and muddy up your mix. Also, here's another way to look at this. Like, the samples that we use today are already processed, so you don't really need to add much to them anymore, compared to if you were to record drums in a recording studio using live instruments, or even your vocals, where you have to kind of control the dynamics in a whole different way. So it makes more sense to grab a compressor. But if you use a high quality sample that's already been processed, it's not as necessary anymore. And the last thing I wish I knew when I started, Finishing projects equals growth. I could sit on the beat for weeks, tweaking on the mix back and forth, changing instruments, contemplating whether I could show the beat to an artist or not. I had so much unfinished projects and like 0 projects that were actually finished. Either I just lost the initial vibe I had for the beat, so I got tired of it and started on another one, or I wasn't happy with the mix, so I left it to be fixed later, which most of the times became never. And that was all just a very bad habit. Of course, you don't want your beats to sound trash, but it's important to finish them, because the more beats you make, the better they will become. I know it can be tough to kill your darlings, but even if you're not 100% happy with it, just finish it. Move forward, because you will improve with the next one. It's like with everything in life. You don't learn how to drive on your first day, and the same applies to music production. So practice, 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 practice. If only I knew these things back when I started making beats, man, it would save me so much time. It's crazy. All right, that was it, guys. If you have some experiences of your own, please share them in the comments. I would love to read it. Make sure to leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so we can keep giving you guys more value. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.